I have calculated all of our debt because that's something that I want to tackle and get it down as low as possible. I didn't realize how far in debt we were. I don't even want to say this number. We are, not including our mortgage, everything but our mortgage. Student loans, car payments, credit cards, home equity, $178,745.
Yeah, look, this is really bad. $180,000 in debt, splitting that across credit cards, student loans, car payments. And the most worrying thing for me is the home equity loans. If you have to take out a home equity loan on top of your mortgage, that basically means that you've borrowed more on top of just paying your house off, which for me would be an absolute last resort to anyone. Just so treacherous. The one asset you've got is when you start paying down your mortgage, you own that equity, and that at least gives you some leverage, but they've just surrendered all of that leverage all over again. If I were to give any kind of advice to this, you'd have to understand exactly what the payments all are. Student loans, obviously, in the US are really, really difficult to navigate around. Even if you apply for bankruptcy in the US, your student loan remains with you. It's an absolutely insane system to anyone. I mean, in the UK, we have a student loan system, but to anyone in the UK, anyone in Europe, that is just so strange, the way that the US student loan system works. And it's very, very difficult to write it off or get any kind of forbearance. So that is one that you're just going to have to swallow. And there's probably not a lot you can do with it. Now, things like your credit cards, your car payments, it would be interesting to know what the car payments are, how much the cars are worth, if you're in negative equity. If you're not, sell them, and take the money and throw it towards your credit cards, and or throw it towards a beta that you own outright, because it is an astonishing amount of money the US spends on car payments. I think it's now the average car payment is about $700-800 a month. Just insane amount of money. So the credit card payments, what you'd want to know what the APR is, and what the minimum payments are. You've got a couple of methods you can do with that. So the Dave Ramsey snowball method is attack the smallest balance first to build the psychology to start paying them off. That is definitely more of a kind of psychological trick to help you get out of debt, which has its merits. In terms of just saving the most money of interest, the way of doing it is attack the one with the highest interest payments first, get that down, and then you'll have to pay less overall. But there is absolutely no point doing that if you then don't have the psychology and the impetus to actually pay the rest of them off. So, we need to depend on what that is. Yeah, the home equity one is worrying. The car payments one, you need to know what's in there. The credit cards is then the one you'd hit next. I'm not a massive fan of credit card utilization. I think there has been a narrative out there for a long time which you need to utilize credit cards in order to build a credit score. You only need to build a credit score if you want to borrow money. If they already have their mortgage, they do not need a really healthy credit score. You are in there, and quite frankly, at this moment in time, you are not moving. Your credit score will be in the gutter. And you just need to keep paying off your mortgage and get that home equity loan paid off, because at the moment it probably looks like they're not owning anything in their house at all. So you're going to need to get that sorted. And then it's lifestyle. In the rest of the video, she goes on about how she's going to work on TikTok shop and things like that. There's two ways that you can really bring down debt with the money that you're earning. You can go and earn more money and throw all that extra money into the debt, or you really cut back on your lifestyle. You have to, with a situation like this, you're going to have to do both. Again, this is where money and psychology really are hand in hand, because when people earn more money, their lifestyle tends to inflate. And that is not just because they have more money to spend, but if you're doing more hours, if you're having to physically put more into work, psychologically speaking, you want to reward yourself in the time that you have left. And I think that's totally understandable for most people. If you go and work 7 days a week, on day 7, you're going to want to go to a nice restaurant or go to the pub, whatever. These people are not in a situation to do that. So earning more money alone might not be the silver bullet they think it is. You're going to need to really, really cut back and live as basically as possible. Caleb Hammer does a lot of this on his financial audit series, and is going to need to break it down. I hope they don't have any children, because that's going to be quite severe. $180,000, if you think you can pay off 20 grand, you're still talking a decade to get out of that level of debt. It's really scary. I would say that the positive in this is acknowledging it and dealing with it by knowing all the facts. Any fitness, nutrition, not nutritionist, dietitian is the correct term. Anyone into fitness, anyone into personal finance, budgeting, money saving, the first way that you get any kind of idea of how to tackle this is know what you're dealing with and write it down and budget it. Have a strategy. You can't just deal with this amount on a whim. It's such a huge amount. It is going to have to be a wholesale lifestyle change for a number of years. There is obviously some other levers they may be able to pull. There might be debt consolidation, but that can be just as, if not more, expensive. Friends and family might be able to help them out, but with things like this, you need to deal with the root cause, which is there's habits and there's psychological things going on there, which mean you need to deal with this. Very infrequently do really, really bad financial situations just come from a one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. It does happen to some people, but it is pretty rare. It tends to be people either don't have discipline, or they haven't been educated about personal finance, and they will spend and spend and spend, and then when the thing happens is when the proverbial hits the fan. That's when people get into real financial issues. I would love if there were a follow-up to this to understand exactly what those amounts are, what the minimum payments are. I'd like to understand what they have spent this money on, because that's $180,000 that has already been spent. So what's it gone to? And it would be interesting to know if it has gone on things like, if say the home equity loan went on home improvements, so now the home is worth more. Again, there might be some levers to pull. And if, say, it was worth more, we did the redevelopments, but then I or my husband lost their job, that's when things can happen. But to lock that in with credit card and car payments makes it sound like there's been some decisions made where they've lived beyond their means for a sustained amount of time. I thought I'd kind of do a bit of a longer one on this because it is not uncommon. I'm glad that people share it, because I do think it puts into perspective some people have significantly better situations than that and get really worried. I would say, though, is that a lot of this does come down to risk tolerance, particularly when it comes to paying off debt. I personally have a very, very low risk tolerance when it comes to debt. I don't want to hold debt. I want to be in the black as much as possible. With the exception of my mortgage, which again, I have a longer term strategy for. I don't like holding money on credit cards very often. I definitely don't like having consumer debt like buy now, pay later. My student loan, because it's in the UK and it comes out pre-tax and is kind of automated, I don't give a great deal of thought to. I know some people really want to pay that down. I'm probably not that risk intolerant, but I do get it because it does accrue a little bit of interest. I think there's a few lessons people should take from this. Your situation might not be as bad as this, but you might still feel that it is an inhibitor to your life. Getting out of that situation, writing it down, budgeting it, and having a strategy will help you get to where you want to be on your financial journey. The other thing is I find debt incredibly stressful, and that stress impedes on every other aspect of my life, being it work, being it home, fitness goals, anything else like that. If I have a lot of stress, I tend to drink more. I tend to exercise a lot less. I tend to eat the wrong things, so it can have a massive impact on me. If you're anything like that, then getting out of debt really quickly and making that sacrifice for a couple of months is probably the best way forward for you. Drop a comment to let me know your thoughts on this, and if you've got a situation and you want to kind of run through it, I'll respond with another video. Hope this person responds with a part 2. I'm looking forward to it.